It's 1941, winter in Buckinghamshire, England. Behind the ivy-covered walls of an old Victorian mansion, the war is being fought in silence. No gunfire, no soldiers, only the relentless clicking of machines. Inside Bletchley Park, a group of mathematicians, linguists, and chess players stare at a jumble of rotating drums and wires. The air smells of oil and ozone. Sheets of ciphertext, strings of meaningless letters cover every desk. A man stands apart from the rest, thin, slightly stooped, eyes fixed not on the chaos, but on possibility. His name, Alan Turing. He's watching a machine of his own design, a towering cabinet of rotors and cables, come alive for the first time. They call it the bomb. A machine built to think, faster than any man could. The team crowds closer. The drums begin to spin. Hundreds of possible settings for the German Enigma code flashing past in mechanical rhythm. Turing's hand trembles just slightly as he adjusts a dial. For weeks they've failed. Every day, lives are lost because of one message they couldn't read. Convoys sunk in the Atlantic, towns bombed before dawn. But tonight feels different. The machine stops. A single click echoes through the room. The rotor halts on a configuration that fits. The encoded message resolves. And for the first time, the Allies read the words the enemy thought were unreadable. It's just one message, one key among billions. But it means the impossible has happened. A mathematician, a man once mocked for his eccentricities, has built a device that can outthink Hitler's most secure war machine. Yet few will ever know his name. And fewer still will understand the price he'll pay for what he's about to change, not only in war, but in the very definition of intelligence itself. Before computers had screens, before artificial intelligence was even a phrase, there was a quiet man who taught the world's first machines to think. This is the story of Alan Turing. Before Alan Turing could change the course of the war, he had to confront a riddle built not from numbers, but from secrecy itself. Its name was Enigma. Invented in the 1920s by a German engineer named Arthur Scherbius, the Enigma machine was originally designed for business encryption, a commercial curiosity. But by the 1930s, the German military had transformed it into something far more dangerous, a code machine capable of generating trillions of combinations each day. Each press of a key scrambled the alphabet in a pattern that shifted with every letter typed. A single message could become a blizzard of nonsense. To break it manually was impossible. Even if a team of cryptanalysts tried one setting every minute, it would take longer than the age of the universe to test them all. By 1939, the Enigma network stretched across the Nazi war machine, from the Kriegsmarine submarines prowling the Atlantic to the Luftwaffe's bombing raids over London. Each division had its own variant, its own keys, and its own procedures. Every sunrise, a new code. Every midnight, the slate wiped clean. The Allies could hear German transmissions. They just couldn't understand them. It was like listening to the enemy through a wall of mirrors. But the first cracks in Enigma didn't come from Britain. They came from a group of Polish mathematicians, Marian Rejewski, Jerzy Różycki, and Henryk Zagalski, who, years before the war, had quietly built the first replica of the machine. They discovered its logic, mapped its wiring, and on the eve of Germany's invasion, handed their knowledge to Britain and France. It was a lifeline, and the seed from which Turing's later work would grow. Still, by the time Turing arrived at Bletchley Park, the Germans had evolved Enigma beyond anything the Poles had imagined. They added new rotors, plug boards, and daily permutations. Every advancement rendered previous solutions useless. It wasn't just a cipher anymore. It was an idea, a moving target of mathematical beauty and military terror. To beat it, Turing would have to think differently, not as a linguist or soldier, but as a machine. He needed to build something that could fight Enigma on its own terms, speed against speed, logic against chaos. Long before Alan Turing stared down Enigma, he was a quiet boy lost in his own world, a world of symbols, numbers, and questions that most people never thought to ask. Born in London, 1912, Alan Matheson Turing grew up in an age when intellect was something to be contained, not celebrated. He attended Sherborne School, a traditional English boarding school that valued Latin and literature over science. Alan preferred equations. While his classmates recited poetry, he solved puzzles in his head, visualizing numbers as shapes, logic as movement. Teachers called him distracted. But beneath the surface, something extraordinary was forming. A new way to see the universe. He once wrote, "I am more interested in ideas than people." It wasn't arrogance. It was precision. Where others saw noise, he saw pattern. In 1927, at age 15, he discovered Einstein's papers by accident. Without formal instruction, he grasped the core of relativity, understanding that the laws of nature could be described by abstract logic. It was the first glimpse of how mathematics could explain everything. But even prodigies have ghosts. For Alan, it was Christopher Morcom, a brilliant classmate who shared his curiosity, his humor, his trust. When Christopher died suddenly from bovine tuberculosis, Alan's world fractured. He poured his grief into numbers, trying to make sense of mortality through logic. He wrote in his diary that the mind must be more than flesh, that thought itself might be something that could exist outside the body. It was a haunting idea, one that would follow him all his life. The notion that thinking could be mechanized. By the 1930s, Turing was at Cambridge University, immersed in mathematics and philosophy. He moved easily between pure theory and imaginative leaps. His professors called him brilliant, but odd. He biked everywhere, often in the rain, sometimes wearing a gas mask to avoid pollen. He chained his teacup to a radiator so no one could steal it. He was different, but he was free. Then, in 1936, he wrote a paper that would quietly change the world. It described a theoretical device, a machine that could perform any calculation, given a set of instructions. He called it a universal computing machine. Today, we call it the Turing machine, the conceptual ancestor of every computer on Earth. At just 24, Turing had already imagined the age of algorithms. He didn't know it yet, but his theory would soon collide with the deadliest code of the modern age and turn abstract thought into a weapon of war. September 1939, Germany invades Poland. Britain declares war. And in a quiet corner of Buckinghamshire, a secret army begins to assemble. The site is called Bletchley Park, a Victorian estate surrounded by trees, far from the chaos of London. To passers-by, it looks like a countryside mansion. Inside, it's becoming the nerve center of the Allies' most secret intelligence war. The British government's Government Code and Cipher School, GC&CS, takes over the property. They bring in mathematicians, linguists, chess champions, and crossword solvers. No uniforms, no medals, just minds. The recruits are sworn to secrecy under the Official Secrets Act. Even their families won't know what they do. Their mail is censored, their conversations monitored. They can never say the word Enigma. Alan Turing arrives quietly one morning in his usual way, slightly disheveled, riding a bicycle with a broken chain. He's assigned to Hut 8, the naval code-breaking section. The work, impossible. The atmosphere, electric. The team includes Dilly Knox, an older classics scholar who had been breaking codes since World War I, and Gordon Welchman, another mathematician who will later refine Turing's designs. Their task is simple in description but brutal in execution. Read the mind of the enemy through pure mathematics. Each day, thousands of German radio messages are intercepted. Weather reports, troop movements, submarine coordinates. Each one encrypted with Enigma. Each one useless without the key. Turing's approach is unlike anyone else's. He rarely explains his thoughts, preferring long silences and sudden bursts of insight. To some, he seems aloof. To others, a genius lost in translation. He works long nights, cycling home in the dark to feed stray cats and return before dawn. He sketches logic tables by candlelight, imagining how a machine might reduce human error, automate thought, and test possibilities at inhuman speed. Bletchley Park itself becomes a world apart, a miniature city of secrecy. Men and women working side by side, decoding fragments that might save a convoy or warn of an air raid. They live for small victories, a single word decrypted, a pattern spotted in a sea of noise. The pressure is relentless. Every day lost costs lives. But slowly a rhythm begins to form, and within that rhythm, Alan Turing starts shaping something extraordinary. While others look at Enigma and see a wall, Turing sees a path through it, a mechanical mind that could, if built, outthink the code itself. In early 1940, inside the workshops of Bletchley Park, the sound of invention fills the air. Alan Turing's theoretical machine, once scribbled in pencil margins, is turning into steel and wire. Its purpose, to think faster than any human mind. Its target, Enigma. Turing's idea isn't just to guess the daily key, it's to build logic into motion, a machine that can eliminate billions of impossibilities in hours. Where codebreakers once labored line by line, the new device would run through permutations at mechanical speed, seeking the one combination that fits the German cipher perfectly. He calls it the bomb, a name inherited from the Polish machine that inspired it. But Turing's version is far more powerful, designed with help from engineer Harold Doc Keane of the British Tabulating Machine Company. The prototype stands taller than a man, its front covered in rotating drums that mimic Enigma's rotors. Inside, over 10 miles of wiring hum beneath metal panels. When powered on, it sounds like a living thing, clattering, clicking, reasoning. The bomb works not by brute force, but by logic traps. It searches for contradictions, impossible letter pairings that prove a setting can't be correct. With every rejection, the machine gets closer to truth. But not everyone at Bletchley Park understands it. Some senior officers dismiss Turing's machine as academic nonsense. They want quick answers, not theory. Turing, quiet but stubborn, presses on. He convinces his superiors to fund full production, arguing that each day's delay means more ships sunk, more lives lost in the Atlantic. One of his key allies is Joan Clark, a brilliant young cryptanalyst who quickly matches Turing's speed of thought. Together they refine the mathematical logic behind the bomb's search process. Turing admires her intellect. She becomes one of the few who can truly follow his reasoning. By mid-1940, the first operational bomb, Victory, is installed. It's massive, loud, and temperamental. Operators feed it coded intercepts on long paper reels, the machine's rotors spinning in hypnotic rhythm. Hours later, a bell rings, signaling a possible stop. A configuration that might just reveal the daily key. Each success is invisible to the outside world. Messages decrypted in HUT 8 are marked Ultra, the highest classification of secrecy. Commanders in the field never know where the intelligence comes from, only that it saves lives. With every rotation, the bomb brings the Allies closer to piercing the enemy's most guarded secret. But the German Navy is changing the rules, adding new rotors, new codes, and new despair. The race between minds and machines is far from over. Spring 1941. The Battle of the Atlantic is at its breaking point. German U-boats hunt Allied convoys in the cold black water, sinking ships faster than Britain can replace them. Every lost freighter means fewer supplies, fewer weapons, fewer chances to survive the war. The Allied command knows the solution lies not in the sea, but in the messages that guide those submarines. Intercepted, indecipherable, encrypted with naval Enigma, the most complex variant of all. Even Turing's bombs are struggling to keep pace. Each dawn, the Germans change their codebooks and rotor settings. Every night, Bletchley Park starts over, a race against midnight. Inside HUT 8, Turing grows thinner, quieter. His desk overflows with papers, half-eaten sandwiches, and logic diagrams that spiral into the margins. Joan Clark works beside him, tracking permutations with a calm precision. They know the key to the Atlantic War is out there, buried in the noise. Then one night, a stroke of human error gives them their chance. A German weather station pressed for time sends 2 daily reports, both encrypted with Enigma, both starting with the same phrase, Wettervorhersage für, weather forecast for. To the Germans, it's routine. To Turing, it's a gift. A crib, a known plaintext message that could be aligned with its encrypted twin to reveal the hidden pattern of the machine's settings. They feed it into the bomb. The drums spin for hours. Operators watch the lights flicker in hypnotic rhythm. letters and logic cascading in mechanical thought. Then a click, a bell, a match. The bomb stops on a configuration that fits perfectly. The cipher unravels line by line, revealing German U-boat positions across the North Atlantic. For the first time, the Allies can see the enemy beneath the waves. Convoys are rerouted, ambushes avoided. Submarines that once stalked unseen are now hunted. Historians estimate that Turing's breakthrough shortened the war by at least 2 years, saving millions of lives. But no one at Bletchley celebrates. They simply move on to the next message, the next key, the next day's code, because Enigma never sleeps. Each night, the Germans adjust their machines. Each morning, Turing's bombs begin again. It's a war of logic, fought in secrecy, measured in silence. In late 1942, a new challenge emerges, the Shark cipher used by the U-boat fleet. It adds a fourth rotor, multiplying complexity tenfold. For weeks, HUD 8 goes dark. No decrypts, no progress, just tension. The Atlantic bleeds. Turing refuses to give up. He refines his statistical method, the Banburismus technique, combining probability, pattern, and intuition. It works. By early 1943, the Allies regain the edge. Convoy losses drop. The hunters become the hunted. Alan Turing has done the impossible. He has cracked Enigma, not once, but continuously, across years of shifting ciphers. His machines don't just break codes, they redefine what thinking means. Yet outside those huts, the world knows nothing. Reports are filed under the code name Ultra, stamped most secret. Even Winston Churchill, when briefed, calls the Bletchley codebreakers his geese that laid the golden eggs, and never cackled. Turing writes in his notebook, "The machine does not reason, it follows rules." But perhaps reasoning itself is only the following of rules. He has beaten the Enigma, but he's also glimpsed something larger, the boundary between human thought and machine logic. May 1945, the guns have fallen silent. Germany surrenders. Europe exhales. But inside Bletchley Park, the machines still hum, quietly, obediently, until one by one they are powered down, their cables unplugged, their secrets sealed. The war has been won, in part, by people no one will ever thank. No medals, no ceremonies, just a letter stamped, Official Secrets Act. Do not disclose. Alan Turing and his colleagues are ordered to destroy their work. Blueprints for the bomb are burned. Notes are shredded. Decades of collective genius vanish into smoke. Outside the wire fences of Bletchley, Britain celebrates victory in the streets. Flags wave. Church bells ring. But Turing walks home alone, his mind already turning toward a new idea, one that has nothing to do with war. In his eyes, the bomb was never a weapon. It was a proof, a demonstration that thought could be mechanized. If a machine could break Enigma, could it also learn, reason, or perhaps even imagine? By 1946, he's working at the National Physical Laboratory, designing one of the first modern computers, the Automatic Computing Engine, or ACE. It's the physical realization of the theoretical machine he once dreamed up as a Cambridge student. Fast, adaptable, programmable, in essence, the world's first digital mind. But Britain is weary of innovation. The government wants control. Budgets are cut. Projects stall behind locked doors. The same secrecy that helped win the war now begins to strangle the minds that ended it. Turing's colleagues disperse. Some return to teaching, others fade into anonymity. The women of Bletchley, thousands of them, return to lives where they can never speak of what they achieved. They will keep the secret for 30 years. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, American engineers, unknowingly echoing Turing's blueprints, begin building computers like ENIAC and UNIVAC. History starts giving credit elsewhere. Turing doesn't complain. He never does. The mathematician who cracked the uncrackable spends his post-war years chasing an even greater mystery. Can machines think? He begins designing tests to measure intelligence, not by emotion or instinct, but by imitation. If a machine can convince a human it's conscious, does it matter whether it actually is? It's the birth of the idea we now call artificial intelligence. Yet as Turing's thoughts reach for the future, the past, and society itself, begins to close in. Because even in peace, the man who helped save civilization will soon be treated as its criminal. By the early 1950s, Alan Turing is no longer a man of secrets, at least not the kind that save nations. He's a mathematician working quietly at the University of Manchester, helping to build the Manchester Mark I, one of the world's first stored program computers. His ideas, logic, algorithms, the architecture of thought, are decades ahead of their time. But Britain has changed. The war is over. The Cold War has begun. And paranoia seeps into everything. The same state that once needed Turing's mind now fears its own shadows. Turing lives alone in a modest house on Wilmslow Road, spending his days programming, cycling, and tinkering with chemistry experiments. He's eccentric but content, until a burglary in 1952 brings the police to his door. What should have been a routine investigation turns into something far darker. Under questioning, Turing admits he has a relationship with another man. Homosexuality at the time is a criminal offense under British law, considered gross indecency. The police don't care about his wartime service or his role in defeating Hitler's code. They care about the law. Turing is arrested, charged, and convicted, offered a choice: prison or chemical castration, a series of estrogen injections designed to suppress his libido. He chooses the latter, hoping to continue his research. The treatment leaves him weak, depressed, and stripped of dignity. His government clearance is revoked. He's banned from further work with the intelligence community. The man who once built machines to think is now being punished for feeling. Friends are forbidden from discussing his case. His colleagues avoid him, fearing association. Even within academia, whispers replace respect. Still, Turing continues to work, studying morphogenesis, the mathematical patterns behind how plants and animals grow. He finds beauty in order, symmetry in chaos. But the isolation deepens. In his notebooks, he writes not of machines, but of frustration, of being treated as less than human by the nation he saved. On June 8, 1954, his housekeeper finds him dead. A half-eaten apple lies by his bedside. The official verdict: suicide by cyanide poisoning. He was 41 years old. Some say he dipped the apple in poison. Others doubt it, noting the lack of evidence. But one thing is certain: the world lost him long before it realized what it had. Alan Turing's death passed quietly in the newspapers, a footnote, not a eulogy. No mention of Enigma, no mention of the millions saved, only the scandal. The code breaker of Hitler's empire had been broken by his own. For decades after Alan Turing's death, his name disappears from history. The people of Bletchley Park remain silent, bound by secrecy. Textbooks speak of early computing as if it began elsewhere, in America, with machines built from blueprints Turing once imagined. His contributions are scattered through classified files and unspoken memories. But history has a way of resurfacing, like a code waiting for its key. In 1974, the Official Secrets Act begins to loosen its grip. The truth about Bletchley Park finally emerges, that thousands of men and women, guided by Turing's ideas, had quietly changed the course of the war. Newspapers call it Britain's best-kept secret. For the first time, the world learns that the man they ignored and condemned may have saved millions. By the 1980s, Turing's name begins to echo through the halls of science once again. Computer scientists cite his 1936 paper as the foundation of computer theory. Philosophers debate his imitation game, the test he proposed to define machine intelligence. And as the digital age unfolds, his ideas feel prophetic. A man who saw decades into the future while his own society looked backward. Then in 2009, 55 years after his death, the public demands justice. Over 30,000 signatures flood the British government's petition site, calling for an apology. Prime Minister Gordon Brown issues a statement. On behalf of the British government and all those who live freely thanks to Alan's work, we're sorry, you deserve so much better. But the story doesn't end there. In 2013, Queen Elizabeth II grants Alan Turing a posthumous royal pardon. It's symbolic, an acknowledgement that his country at last recognizes what it destroyed. Meanwhile, at Bletchley Park, restoration efforts turn the once-forgotten mansion into a museum. Visitors walk past Turing's reconstructed bomb, its rotors clacking in endless rhythm, a sound that once meant survival. His face appears on postage stamps, on murals, and eventually on the $50 banknote, the same government currency that once paid for his prosecution. Today, his name stands not just for code breaking, but for courage, intellectual and human. The father of computer science, the pioneer of artificial intelligence, and the man who proved that logic and compassion are not opposites. Every smartphone, every search engine, every algorithm whispering through our world carries a spark of Turing's vision, that the act of thinking can be translated into structure, and that even the coldest machine can mirror the patterns of a mind. Alan Turing didn't live to see redemption, but his machines did. And through them, so did his idea. That thought, in any form, is a kind of life. Somewhere in the circuitry of every computer, in every line of code, every blinking cursor, there is a trace of Alan Turing. Not in name, but in thought. A fragment of his question still echoes through our world. Can a machine think? It was never just a technical problem. It was a challenge to our own understanding of what it means to be human. Turing lived in a century defined by machines built to destroy, bombers, tanks, ciphers, and codes. But he saw something different, that machinery could also be a mirror. That logic, stripped of emotion, could still reveal the soul. When he built the bomb, he wasn't merely decoding Enigma, he was decoding us, our capacity to create intelligence, to turn thought into pattern, emotion into data, and choice into consequence. Decades later, we now stand in the age he foresaw. Artificial intelligence translates languages, writes poetry, drives cars, and, in a quiet, poetic irony, tells stories about Alan Turing. The boundary between human and machine grows thinner every year, yet at its core lies Turing's principle, that thinking is not about who performs it, but how it is done. He once imagined a test. A human speaks to an unseen interlocutor. If they cannot tell whether it's a person or a machine, then perhaps there is no longer a difference. It wasn't a contest. It was a meditation on empathy, intelligence, and the limits of understanding. Alan Turing never saw the future he built toward. He didn't live to see computers shrink from rooms to pockets, or machines that learn from the world, as we do. But if he could see them now, the vast networks of artificial minds, the systems that translate thought into sound, pattern into art, he might simply smile and say, yes, it works. Turing's life was marked by contradiction, brilliance and isolation, victory and injustice, logic and pain. Yet in that tension he revealed something timeless, that intelligence, human or artificial, is not defined by perfection, but by curiosity, by the endless pursuit of understanding. From the trenches of Bletchley to the cloud servers of the 21st century, his question endures. Not just, can machines think, but can we? This was the mathematician who cracked Hitler's unbreakable code, Alan Turing, the man who taught machines to think, and in doing so, reminded us what it means to be human.